When did Avatar become a masterpiece? Avatar became like insane to me. I would say, like, it was already good season one and season two, yes, but season three really just took it to the next level. Unless someone can tell me any other defining moments, I'm not gonna lie, I don't. It was already great. Don't get me wrong, but I think when it really became like elite, like top tier, top of the food chain, golden shows ever, just like the whole arc of Aang disappearing for more time, coming back with his hair grown out, Zuko changing his ways and actually coming to train with the Avatar. That whole arc of how he had to go on a mission with everybody to gain their trust. Cause bro, they were not fucking with Zuko, but Aang needed a firebending teacher, and Zuko was the perfect person for it. He was a perfect match, and like just that whole arc of him regaining their trust, the struggle he went through, and then Aang disappearing, coming back with a full head of hair, and then getting on the lion turtle thing, and learning how to take away bending. Ooh, that's really where it became a masterpiece, in my opinion. Now, what does this video have to say about it? Well, no, maybe you have an opinion that I don't know about. Maybe they do, but you know what? Let's find out. Maybe there's a part where I'm missing. It's possible. I can't really remember. It's been a minute. But let's get into it. I'm excited.
20 years. That's how long it's been since Avatar The Last Airbender first aired. And yet, despite the last few decades of rewatching and analysis and scrutiny, this show remains, in my opinion, an absolute masterpiece. It's one of those very rare pieces of art where everything just seemed to fall into place. The world building, the character arcs, the humor, the emotional depth, the voice acting, the music. The list of what Avatar The Last Airbender does well is basically endless. It is a true masterclass.
Bro, and animation didn't even have to be crazy either. Like, wasn't insane animation like you get with current day anime like Demon Slayer or JJK, but it was just the storyline was just beautifully made. You can't beat this. You can't beat Avatar, man.
In storytelling, a nuanced but powerful show which reveals new layers of depth and meaning every time you revisit it, which I try to do every 1 or 2 years. But if we're being honest, Avatar didn't start out this way. In fact, I've struggled in the past to introduce people to this show, because sure, while those early episodes of season 1 are charming, they can definitely be a bit of a slog to get through for some people. The tone is bouncier, the stakes feel lighter, and yeah, they're fun to watch. I'll always have good memories of seeing Aang tame the Unagi, but they definitely have that Nickelodeon energy, and they don't exactly scream, "This is one of the greatest animated stories ever told." And yet, as every fan knows, Avatar doesn't stay this way for long. No, it grows, it matures, and it eventually becomes this genuinely moving epic about war, and hope and redemption. Yes, there are jokes and childish moments throughout, there always will be. But much like Aang himself, the show finds this beautiful balance between lightness and real, often painful emotional depth. Which raises the question, when exactly does Avatar transition from being a solid kids show to something much more? What is the precise moment Avatar The Last Airbender becomes the masterpiece we all know it as today? Well, I think there are a few episodes you could feasibly point to. Some people might say it's the Winter Solstice two-parter, when the spiritual mythology really starts to unfold. Others might point to The Deserter, with its surprisingly heavy themes of discipline and responsibility. Maybe it's when the story reaches the Northern Water Tribe and the scale of the world properly opens up. Or if you're a little more patient, maybe you think it's not until season 2, when Azula steps onto the stage, or when Toph joins the group and the show's final form really starts to take shape. But for me, the real shift, the moment Avatar The Last Airbender becomes a masterpiece, happens much earlier, in season 1, episode 12, The Storm. Like I've already said, the first 11 episodes of Avatar The Last Airbender are not—
Season 1, episode 12, The Storm? So you're claiming It became a masterpiece in season 1. That's a bold claim. I don't know if I can side with that. In season 1, it became a masterpiece. Let's see what you have to say, man. I don't know about that.
Not bad by any means. In fact, when compared to most other animated shows, they're pretty solid. Episodes such as the Southern Air Temple, the Waterbending Scroll, and the Winter Solstice two-parter lay essential bricks in the show's foundation, building the world, deepening the characters, and quietly setting up a much larger story. However, when compared to what Avatar The Last Airbender would eventually become, the first half of Book 1 does have its shortcomings. There's an overtly Adventure of the Week vibe running through these early episodes, light, breezy side quests that, while charming and often laying important groundwork, still feel a little juvenile. And of course, this makes sense. Sure. Avatar originally aired on Nickelodeon and was aimed primarily at kids. But while there's still undoubtedly heart in these episodes, there's just not always a ton of weight. And this is especially true when you look at the 2 episodes that immediately precede the storm, Jet and The Great Divide. Now look, I wouldn't go as far as to call an episode like Jet bad. It's an interesting enough character piece, which does a decent job at teasing some of the moral grey areas the show will explore with much more depth and nuance later on. However, when you step back and look at the plot, a group of ragtag teenagers launching guerrilla strikes against entire Fire Nation battalions, it does all feel a little childish and silly, especially when you throw in the very surface level romance subplot between Jet.
Childish and silly. I thought this was a standard back in the day, man. I thought I had to be like this nigga to pull the girls. I don't think it was childish. I mean, I was a child at the time. And why are we talking about childish? This is a cartoon. It's for kids anyways. My nigga, like, what are we talking about? It's fine. It was perfect. I wouldn't change anything about it. It was, yeah, the kids fighting the Fire Nation people. Oh, those storyline made sense. Like, they came in, took over their entire village, probably killed a couple of their family members. Well, they got mad. They trained up. They worked hard, and then they wanted their leg back. And obviously, now it comes to the morality of things, where it's like, I think Jet was willing to go to the extreme and, like, off some people in GTA. But, in a way, he was well within his right to do that, considering what they had done to him and his family. But then, of course, you always want the heroes or the good guys per se to follow by the rules, the moral code, and not retaliate the way they have been treated whatsoever. Forgive, turn the other cheek, get slapped like this, get slapped the other, turn the other one to get slapped. Like, some people just don't roll like that, man. And I fuck with that, like, bro. Just go crazy, do your thing. But of course, like, again, it's good that Aang and Katara and just people, they had their own moral compass, and that's why they couldn't mess with the direction Jet was headed. But again, this was all good for the storyline and for the plot.
And Katara. And then there's The Great Divide, which is basically unanimously agreed upon by the Avatar fanbase to be the worst episode of the entire show. Perhaps the only bad episode of the entire show, due to just how inconsequential and instantly forgettable it is. Hell, even the creators of Avatar The Last Airbender, Brian Konietzko and Michael Dante DiMartino, have jokingly disowned The Great Divide, which, you've got to say, is pretty funny. Together, these episodes really embody that lighter, young adult energy of early Avatar. And maybe this is why the tonal whiplash of The Storm hits as hard as it does. It's the moment the show stops playing around. Like the writers suddenly realized one day that they were already halfway through the first season.
Oh, okay, hold on. He might be cooking right now.
And should probably start showing everyone what this seemingly simple story was truly capable of. The emotional complexity of The Storm and its status as a turning point in the show are evident from the very first scene. We open not with a joke or a quirky side quest, but with a nightmare, Aang floating in this dreamlike void. The music is cold and otherworldly. Katara and Sokka appear at his side, his new points of comfort, his found family. But they vanish just as quickly. They can't help him here. Then comes Monk Gyatso. He asks why Aang disappeared before crumbling into ash. A haunting moment made even more powerful by the brilliant animation. We even witness a few frames of Fire Lord Ozai's towering silhouette right before Aang wakes up. Now remember, at this point in the series, we barely know anything about Aang's past, but we don't need context to feel the weight of what he's seeing here. It's a nightmare about fear. Fear of the past he ran from, and the destiny he's still not quite ready to face. It's not exposition, it's not setup. It's guilt, it's trauma, and with it, Avatar quietly signals that it's about to start digging a little deeper. Anyway, while Aang wrestles with guilt in his dreams, a different kind of commotion is brewing aboard Zuko's ship. There's not a cloud in the sky, but Uncle Iroh, with that quiet wisdom of his, can feel a storm brewing. The atmosphere here is tense and claustrophobic. Zuko snaps at his crew, who mutter resentfully behind his back. He's not some noble prince. He's just a scarred teenager, obsessed, reckless, isolated. And yet, even here, the storm plants the seeds of something deeper. Zuko isn't cruel for cruelty's sake. He's frustrated, desperate, alone. For now though, none of that matters. They can't outrun what's coming. Not in the sky, and not inside themselves.
Zuko was just like a ball of rage. He was carrying so much pain on his shoulders, man. And instead of reacting in a way where it was like, oh, this is not fair, blah, blah, he reacted in a way where, you know, he built himself up through anger, which you obviously don't want to be a victim. You want to build yourself up, but with anger and then with trying to please the very man who burnt you, trying to please him. You think that was okay what he did? You think your mother would have been fine with that if he hadn't banished her too? He banished your mom that you were trying to please this motherfucker. Like, priorities are all messed up. But that's the thing, he's a kid. He doesn't know any better. That's what he thought he had to prove himself. Also made the storyline so good. God damn.
Meanwhile, Team Avatar has stopped in a seaside village, looking for supplies and work. Now, up until this point in the story, every character who meets Aang has treated him the same way, with the same kind of awe and blind reverence. You know, the Avatar is back, hope has returned. No one questions where he's been, no one asks what his absence cost. And to be honest, I've always found this a little strange. Again, I get that it's a kids show, but you'd think after 100 years of war, after everything people have lost, there'd be at least a few characters who didn't exactly greet him with open arms. And this is why I love the fisherman who Aang meets here. He actually might be one of the best single episode characters the show ever had, because he's not blindly celebrating the Avatar's return. No, he's angry.
I'm certain there was, maybe this was the first encounter where someone was not happy with Aang's arrival or stuff, but I'm pretty sure there was more than just this guy that was like, you build on us for a long ass time. Now you just want to waltz back in and start having us hail you, the Avatar's back? No. Where were you 100 years ago when the Fire Nation started tweaking out on everybody, causing all this pain and suffering and deaths? This was not the only guy who had a problem with him just trying to waltz back in and get praise.
He looks at Aang not as a hero, but a failure. It's a rare moment of realism, where the emotions match the messy, complicated world the story is actually set in. And the way Aang reacts, not with anger, but with guilt, tells us everything. Even without knowing the full story yet, we can feel that Aang has been carrying something heavy, something unspoken, ever since he woke up from that iceberg. It's the first real crack in the playful...
Interesting. I don't even remember that, like, from the beginning. Obviously it makes sense now that I think about it, but yeah, from the beginning, nobody really knew how he found himself in that iceberg. And me just knowing that I've watched this already, I know how he found himself in the iceberg, but like, yeah, starting from the beginning, it's like, you don't know any of this. So it's very interesting when it becomes revealed, which just adds to the the flair of the whole show.
Adventurous image of the boy monk we've seen so far. Eventually Aang flies off, Katara follows him, and it's at this point that the storm splits into two parallel stories, Aang's past and Zuko's past, cutting between them with rhythmic precision. And it's such a smart choice, because even though the two stories are technically unrelated, the emotions underneath them are nearly identical. Guilt, shame, isolation, both of them shaped by forces they couldn't control, both of them carrying scars they're still trying to outrun. And what makes it even smarter is the way the show structures these two stories. Both Aang and Zuko's pasts are told around fires, one in a cave, one on a ship, and the episode cleverly fades between them. Aang is finally opening up to Katara, while Iroh explains Zuko's history to the ship's crew, who up until now have only seen him as this angry, one-note figure, perhaps just like us, the audience. It's simple visual storytelling, but it works beautifully. Aang's story starts first. Sitting in the cave, he tells Katara about his life at the Southern Air Temple. A life of freedom and community and play. The memories are bright and warm, with this soft white sheen that gives them a slightly idealized, nostalgic feel. But there's also this deep sense of sadness running underneath them. We learn that the monks revealed to Aang that he was the Avatar far earlier than tradition would dictate, out of fear that war was coming, and that the world would soon need him. And after this reveal, everything changes for Aang. The other kids at the temple treat him differently. The monks treat him differently. He's no longer just another airbender.
True.
He's something else now, something bigger. And this is all made painfully clear when Aang overhears the monks debating whether to take him away from Monk Gyatso, the only true parental figure he has. This is the true breaking point. The Fire Nation might be the distant threat, but in this moment it's the people Aang trusts, his own community, who make him feel more isolated than ever. And faced with that, he runs. Not out of selfishness, not out of cowardice, but because he's a scared kid, and for the first time in his life, he feels completely alone. Meanwhile, back on the ship, Zuko's story unfolds.
True.
And just like Aang's, it's not the...
It's also a lot of, it's crazy to blame the kid. Mind you, he's like 11, 12, 13 years old, and you're telling him he's the Avatar. So you're telling me you're expecting this kid to just become this superb being, change his entire life, train every day, and save the world? Like, bro, of course he ran away. So it makes sense. He wasn't like he wanted to run away from responsibility, bro. No, he was a kid. You can't put that kind of responsibility on a kid. It's gonna break. He's gonna break.
Story of a great fall from power. It's the story of a boy being crushed by expectations he didn't choose. Through Iroh's explanation to the crew, we see a young, scarless Zuko, eager to impress, stepping into a Fire Nation war meeting. He speaks out impulsively, objecting to a plan that would sacrifice the lives of new recruits. But Zuko isn't punished because he's wrong. He's punished because he speaks out of turn, challenging the rigid hierarchy of the Fire Nation's military culture. The real emotional blow comes when Zuko is forced into an Agni Kai, and learns too late that his opponent is not the war general he interrupted, but his own father. When he begs for mercy, he's met not with understanding, but with violence.
Sick,
Ozai
bro.
burns him without hesitation and banishes him in
insane.
shame. The scar, of course, is the most visible consequence, but what lingers far deeper is the emotional wound. The internalized belief that speaking out, showing compassion, even hesitating in the face of cruelty, will only ever lead to rejection and pain. Both Aang and Zuko are, in their own ways, exiled. Aang cast adrift from his people by fear and expectation, encased in ice for 100 years. Zuko banished by his father for showing a flicker of humanity in a system built to crush it. And the storm is careful not to over...
That was poetic. Oh, I ain't never thought about it like that. Holy. That was bars. That was bars. I need to make an Avatar rap battle or something. Add that in there. That was poetic. Holy. Add that now.
State these parallels. There's no heavy narration telling the viewer what to think. Instead, the structure, The mirrored fires, the matching sequences of shame and exile, invites the audience to draw the connections themselves. Both boys are burdened by expectations that they never asked for. Both are trapped by choices they had no real power to make. And both are now adrift, carrying the consequences of those moments on their shoulders. This dual structure doesn't just deepen our understanding of Aang and Zuko individually, it transforms the emotional stakes of the show itself. Because, think about it, before this point we didn't really know these two people that well. Sure, we knew the surface details. Aang was the fun-loving, carefree kid with a hidden burden. Zuko was the angry, brooding villain chasing him across the world. But that was about it. Their real histories, the weight that they were carrying, the reasons they behaved the way they did, had been left mostly unspoken. The storm changes all of that. The episode ends with Aang risking his life to save the fisherman who cursed him, and Zuko risking his life to save the crew who doubted him.
So wait, this whole review happened in one episode? Then I'm not gonna lie, that has to be the moment where that had to be the turning point where it became cemented. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah. I don't know, I would just like the word a masterpiece. Masterpiece is a big word. I would say this was a pivotal moment into like the series being, what would I say? Like, I'm not just gonna say a good one, but the series being worthwhile. The series being, oh, this is something you need to watch to the end. Like, this is amazing storytelling. This would be the pivotal moment where it's like, oh, the storyline in this show is impeccable, amazing, beautiful. And from here on, this was the point where everyone knew we need to see more. We need to see how this story unravels. Does Aang end up stepping up to the plate and becoming the man he was meant to be, the Avatar, the savior of the world? And does Zuko either finally achieve his father's blessing and his father's favor and make him proud, or does he finally see his worth and realize his father isn't a man worth reaching out for, like worth impressing? Zuko been trying to impress the wrong person the entire time. Zuko had his uncle within the whole journey. His uncle was his best friend. His uncle was the man he should have been looking up to and the man he should have followed in his footsteps. But he was so blinded by his pride and his shame. He wanted nothing more than to come back home, basically, to the Fire Nation. And he thought his way of doing that was to capture the Avatar. Not knowing his destiny was actually to help train the Avatar to destroy the Fire Nation's tyranny. Oh my god, that is beautiful writing. I just sounded poetic myself, gang.
2 acts of compassion, 2 moments of redemption, or at least the beginning of one. And then, in the middle of the chaos, it happens. As Aang and Appa fly through the storm, carrying everyone to safety, Zuko looks up from the deck of his ship and sees him. Their eyes meet for a brief moment across the sky. There's no dialogue, no confrontation, just a fleeting glance between 2 boys who, for all their differences, are carrying a really similar weight. And for me, this is the moment Avatar: The Last Airbender becomes a masterpiece. What the storm does so effectively is recalibrate our understanding of the story we're watching. From this point on, Avatar: The Last Airbender is no longer just a well-made adventure series with a strong premise. It's a story about trauma, identity, and the burden of expectation. About what it means to carry guilt, to question your place in the world, to be shaped by choices you didn't fully make. And the thing is, even when the show returns to lighter, more episodic storytelling, and it does, there's now something deeper running underneath. Every joke, every village visit, every skirmish with a low-level Fire Nation soldier carries the echo of what these characters have been through. Furthermore, the storm sets the emotional foundation for what is, in my opinion, the most important narrative thread in the entire series, the connection between Aang and Zuko. The hero and the antagonist, the monk and the prince. Their stories don't just run parallel, they kind of bend towards each other. And that moment across the sky, that brief look in the middle of the storm, is the first time we really feel that. The first time we sense that this isn't just about balance between elements or nations, it's about balance between people, between paths not taken, between who you were and who you could still become. And that, my friends, is going to be it for now. If you're interested in hearing more of my thoughts on this beautiful show, I actually made a 96-minute video reviewing and ranking every episode from season 1. It's probably my personal favorite video I've ever made, so if you want to check that out, the link's in the description. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you in the next one.
That's amazing that he did that every episode in season 1 or in the entire. Okay, no, chill. Nah, this guy's doing this thing, man. Shout out to bro, the Cozy Kino show. So that was a beautifully made video. Beautifully made video.